The weaver receives his visitors. One of the very first original tales of someone of great wisdom come to be visited by three smaller people of less but still very wise minds. The weaver receives his visitors, comes down to us through the ages from the time of ancient Babylon. It was originally a Sumerian story telling of a weaver or spinner, a male weaver, because there wasn't any acknowledgement of women at the time. And this weaver did indeed receive three visitors of different purposes. One visitor bearing some kind of precious metal, one visitor bearing some kind of oil, one visitor bearing some kind of cloth, and the weaver did accept the last visitor over to spend the night and eat at his table, for such a visitor had the thing the weaver produced, cloth. Lion Star. Stars open up the sky and shine into men's hearts, and one of the stars of the African oeuvre is indeed the lion, so unsparingly a symbol used that you will even find the lion's likeness done as it is here into a knob for the head of a cane. Because people didn't live very long in those days, you'll find the wear and tear upon the lion's head was once again caused by the British Museum. Likely they had the lion's head rolling around in some wooden crate with a bunch of other objects of similar size until it was given a cramped spot in one of the many glass cabinets of the museum. Here's the Aztec board game, the terracotta board game. Here's the Aztec board game, 58 holes, which was popular in the day, and as one can imagine, involved a lot of jumping and moving of pegs. Bronze Dragon. A bronze dragon would be nice to see, but seems the British Museum hasn't gotten around to dipping this bronze piece in a mineral bath and delicately scraping away its crust of oxygenated earth. Even in its stunning state of neglect, vanishing into itself with some sort of Hare Krishna sense of object shame, hard to look at and almost invisible, although one is peering directly at it, flickering as it were. Even so, the bronze dragon cuts an imposing, dynamic figure, being as it is proud of its place as the mascot of Marduk, which is how ancient Babylonians believed. Incredible to think the Babylonians, for example, believed that the dragon spread fire on the horizon and that that's what made a sunset. Can one imagine thinking that a dragon made the sunset in this day and age? Even though this documentarian, no weatherman, no meteorologist in his own right, does not actually understand how a sunset is made, ho ho. But imagine thinking a dragon had done the sunset. Those were ignorant times, the times of the Babylonians. But they were also times of magic. Even if dragons never existed, an average Babylonian must have at least tricked his mind at least once a day into seeing a dragon. Water clock table. With their usual accuracy, the British Museum has noted that this water clock table is probably, quote unquote, from Babylon, and indeed it is. It is. Documents recently released from the London Archives translate for us a left-to-right reading system, much of like what is used today in most of the world. Reading the water clock table brings one to a better understanding and imagining of the water clock table reader back in the Babylonian day, for yes, it was Babylon, and how he must have been hunched for hours on end, watching his water clock trail its bit of water in its little wooden channels, and the weights on the water clock's ends bouncing lightly up and down like delicate little bronze fairies, at least to the eyes of our ancient friend. But one must also know that the primitive sort of nattering animal mind of the ancient Babylonian, reading the water clock table like a squirrel dealing with his nuts and forgetting nut storage spots here and there due on a faulty animal memory. Certainly the water clock table reader would have been taken care of, explaining to some bored king or pharaoh, if asked, what the water clock was saying at that particular moment, and they may have even been looked up to. If you were of the peasant class and you saw a water clock table reader in the street, you might have said, "There's the water clock table reader," and admiring thoughts about how someone above your station could read and write. And then, of course, your thoughts would likely have tumbled back into the bitterness of poverty. For this is the sad truth: the water clock table teaches us that though we have many glittering things here in this British Museum, it is only to say, this is what is left of the elite. But what is left of the ancient commoner? What is left of the ancient commoner? And one finds themselves in the British Museum and staring at the tombs of the pharaohs, such as Ramotep, and one thinks how they probably don't deserve remembrance, that they were definitely slave drivers, and additionally likely absolutely horrible personages to be acquainted with. A day-to-day diet of magic and pleasure must have turned their minds to mush, and they could certainly not have been very gratifying company. Certainly no one in their right minds would want to even suffer an evening meal with them. And so, even as the British Museum / the Freemasons / the Illuminati, even as they spit their ancient elite ancestors in our middling faces and say, "See what is left of the common man, might as well become depressed now about the secret world of gods you'll never know," even as they do that, we realize completely how these so-called elites are perhaps as foolish as anyone human bearing the shoddy engineering that is a simple human brain.